The camera opens on a quiet Texas sunrise, the kind that stretches slowly across open land, golden and calm, almost too peaceful for the story it's about to tell. A voice cuts through the stillness, low and reflective, asking a simple question. What happens when a legend grows old? For decades, one name stood as a symbol of strength, discipline, and near-mythical resilience: Chuck Norris. But at 86, the story is no longer about spinning kicks and invincible heroes. It's about time, loss, and the quiet weight carried by even the strongest among us. To understand the tragedy, you have to go back, not to the memes or the larger-than-life persona, but to the man himself. Born Carlos Ray Norris in 1940, his early life was far from extraordinary. Raised in a struggling household, shaped by hardship and determination, Norris didn't begin as a symbol of strength. He built himself into one. The discipline he found in martial arts wasn't just physical. It became his identity, his escape, and eventually his legacy. Through the 1960s and 70s, Norris rose in the martial arts world, earning championships and respect. But it was his transition into film that turned him into a global icon. Movies like Way of the Dragon, where he famously faced Bruce Lee in a legendary fight scene, cemented his presence. That moment wasn't just choreography, it was the passing of a torch between two giants of combat cinema. From there, the rise was unstoppable. Action films, television fame, and ultimately the cultural phenomenon of Walker, Texas Ranger. Norris became more than an actor. He became an idea of justice, strength, and unbreakable will. In a world that often felt chaotic, Chuck Norris represented control. But legends, no matter how powerful, are still human. The tragedy of Chuck Norris at 86 isn't a single moment. It isn't a dramatic fall or a public collapse. It's quieter than that. It's the slow, inevitable confrontation with time, the one opponent no fighter can defeat. As the years passed, Norris stepped away from the spotlight. For many fans, it felt like a disappearance. The man who once seemed everywhere became increasingly distant, almost ghost-like in public life. But behind that silence was a deeply personal story. One of the most profound turning points came with his wife, Gina. Her health struggles became a defining chapter in Norris's later life. He stepped away from Hollywood not for lack of opportunity, but out of devotion. Reports and interviews revealed his focus had shifted entirely, from action star to caregiver, from public icon to private protector. For a man who built his legacy on strength, this was a different kind of battle. There were no cameras, no applause, no scripted victories, just long days, uncertainty, and the emotional toll of watching someone you love suffer. In many ways, this period reveals more about Chuck Norris than any fight scene ever could. And then there's the weight of legacy itself. At 86, Norris isn't just a man. He's a symbol frozen in time for millions of fans. The internet turned him into a myth through countless jokes and exaggerated feats, where he could roundhouse kick reality itself. But myths don't age. People do. Imagine carrying that contrast. The world sees you as unstoppable, but your body tells a different story. Joints ache, movements slow, energy fades. The same hands that once moved with lightning precision now carry the marks of decades lived. That contrast is its own kind of tragedy, not because it diminishes the man, but because it reminds us how fragile even the strongest legends truly are. There's also the silence. For someone who once lived in front of millions, the absence of constant public presence can feel like a fading echo. Fame is loud, but aging is quiet. And in that quiet, questions begin to surface. How does a man who defined strength redefine himself when strength changes? What replaces the roar of crowds and cameras? For Norris, the answer seems to lie in faith, family, and reflection. Over the years, he has spoken openly about his beliefs and the importance of inner peace. It's a different kind of strength, one that doesn't rely on physical dominance, but on acceptance and resilience of the spirit. Still, there is an undeniable melancholy in watching time reshape a legend. Fans who grew up watching him now face their own passage of time. The aging of Chuck Norris mirrors something deeply personal for them as well. It's not just about him, it's about what he represents. A reminder that the heroes of our youth are not immune to the same forces that shape us all. Yet, calling it purely a tragedy would miss something important, because within this story is also a quiet kind of victory. Chuck Norris did not burn out or fade through scandal. He chose his exit. He prioritized love over fame. He faced life's later challenges with the same determination that once defined his on-screen battles. And perhaps that is the final twist in the story. The man who spent decades defeating enemies in scripted fights ultimately faced the only opponent that truly matters, time itself. Not with resistance, but with grace. There's no dramatic final showdown, no cinematic ending, just a man living out his later years with the same discipline and purpose that carried him through life. The camera returns to that Texas sunrise. The light is brighter now, the shadows shorter. The voice returns, softer this time, almost reflective. Legends don't disappear. They evolve. They become stories, memories, lessons. And in that transformation, there is both loss and meaning. At 86, Chuck Norris is no longer the unstoppable force the world once saw. But perhaps, in many ways, he has become something more real and more human than ever before.